Madam Joker, welcome back. We missed you. It ends tonight.
Can you believe that I've now seen every single David Lynch film, excluding his short films and features that he produced? That's insane. I haven't even seen every Stanley Kubrick movie, and Kubrick's my favorite director. David Lynch's filmography has been a very bumpy road for me in this channel. Some of his films are good, Eraserhead, Dune, Wild at Heart. Some are excellent, The Elephant Man, Lost Highway, The Straight Story. One is just mediocre, Blue Velvet. One is bad, Mulholland Drive, and one was abysmal, Inland Empire. I also wholeheartedly apologize for the first couple of videos I made about Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive, as those early videos were hyperbolic, shallow, and even misinformed critiques that I did my best to remedy in later videos. See Blue Velvet Revisited, Mulholland Drive Third Time Isn't the Charm, and my review of Lost Highway. I also received some, not entirely unwarranted, hate and derision from some viewers, but I don't let those trolls get me down. Ultimately, I'm not a fan of David Lynch, but I recognize that he's a skilled director whose output has been more good than bad, and he's certainly one of the most unique and intriguing directors I've covered on this channel. After all, what other director can you think of who has made a couple of the best and worst films you've ever seen? The final Lynch film I saw was Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me, a companion piece, more or less a prequel, to Lynch's cancelled two-season Twin Peaks TV series. I haven't seen the Twin Peaks TV series, so I'll be judging Fire Walk with Me on its own merits. Where does Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me sit in Lynch's filmography in terms of quality? Rather gratifyingly for my final Lynch film, Fire Walk with Me is actually fairly good. It has serious flaws, mainly in its characterization, pacing, and bizarre interludes, but it's a compelling, beautiful film with a powerhouse performance from Cheryl Lee and mostly effective surrealism. Lee stars as Laura Palmer, a high school student whose murder was the subject of the TV series. The film follows Palmer's final days of life as she indulges in sex and drugs and is stalked by a malevolent figure named Bob. As with most of my Lynch reviews, let's start with the good bits. Cheryl Lee is riveting as Laura Palmer, playing her with manipulative sweetness, a haughty, seductive hedonism, and anxious instability as Bob draws closer. Laura is never likable, but she is alluring and engaging as a femme fatale of sorts, and you fear for her as she throws her life away and comes under spectral threat. Moira Kelly, who replaced Lynch regular Lara Flynn Boyle from the TV series, is a kind, dainty, and stable counterpart to the self-destructive Laura, and Ray Wise is chilling as Laura's father Leland. Chris Isaak and Kiefer Sutherland provide some levity early in the film as two bumbling FBI agents, so it's a shame that they leave the film so early. The only weak links in the cast are Phoebe Augustine as Laura's other friend Renette Polkowski, and Kyle MacLachlan as Special Agent Dale Cooper, the protagonist of the TV series. Augustine's character is sexy and hints at a sleazy past with Laura, but doesn't need to be in the film because she's essentially just a clone of Laura, and I've always found MacLachlan's acting style rather wooden. As with nearly every Lynch film, the cinematography is beautiful and the moody, brooding score by frequent Lynch composer Angelo Badalamenti fits the film's atmosphere perfectly. Fire Walk with Me also has a lot of mostly effective surrealism. The peculiar dancing girls' movements initially seem like a silly display, but they are deciphered by Agent Desmond as code from his boss about the murder case in a very clever sequence of deduction. The ring changing hands from the deceased Teresa Banks to Laura symbolizes her impending doom, effectively marking her for death from Bob. Moreover, the Pink Room is a prime example of a surreal experience crafted from real-world stimuli. This shady nightclub / brothel, with its pervasive pink lighting, droning guitar riff, and zombie-like patrons, feels confronting and otherworldly while still rooted, pun intended, in the darker side of reality, as such alien-seeming places do exist. Also, on a side note, I wonder if the sexy, gritty guitar riff in the Pink Room may have gone on to inspire the music in the concert toward the end of the wonderful game Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery EP. Those elements of Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me are outstanding, but this is still very much a style over substance film. I don't really like the expression style over substance. The substance of a film, its writing, dialogue, acting, direction, editing, and so on, is usually executed using the filmmaker's own style and creative vision, and in numerous films such as Tron, Blade Runner, and most recently Gravity, the style is the substance. But style over substance is still a valid term, and it applies to Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, as the pacing, parts of the narrative, and Laura's characterization are quite lackluster. Unlike Mulholland Drive, Fire Walk with Me does have some plot points that are presented and then ultimately culminate in a satisfactory way. The ring, marking Teresa then Laura for death, makes sense as a framing device, and there is strong intrigue generated by Laura's unpredictable, sometimes abusive father Leland, and the growing certainty that he has been possessed by the evil Bob. The climax is also dark, stylized, and highly disturbing. But until the climax, these plot points are engaged with very sparsely across the film's very long running time, and so lose a fair amount of their urgency and relevance. The character development, bridging these far-spaced moments of plot, could have also been done much better. The DVD case of my copy describes Laura as the model citizen. Blonde, pretty, clever, and sweet, Laura is the prom queen and the girlfriend of the quarterback, the most popular girl in school. But as we become aware of the private doings of Laura's friends and relatives in Twin Peaks, it is evident that the residents of this town are on a bad trip, and Laura is the baddest trip of all. We see some evidence of Laura's popularity, as she is able to make her kind of boyfriend James forgive and adore her with just a few words and a winning smile, but otherwise we see nothing of the sweet, clever, and model student public face that the DVD describes Laura with. Therefore, there is no good side on display to contrast with her darker, seedier behavior, so there is barely any sense of the corruption and degradation that the film aimed to depict. At one point, Laura tells Bobby that his Laura is gone, but from our perspective, this virtuous, responsible Laura never even existed. Essentially, she begins the film as a reckless, debauched teenager, and leaves the film as a reckless, debauched teenager. As such, Cheryl Lee's extraordinary performance is really the only thing that salvages the very flimsy characterization, as Laura's arc is nothing but down from a very under-established starting point. The ring works well as a framing device, but at the same time it leads on from a somewhat irrelevant starting point. The opening, with agents Desmond and Stanley investigating the death of Teresa Banks, is quite interesting and even fun, as Isaac and Sutherland have endearing chemistry, the eerie case and the off-kilter townsfolk are unnerving, and there is some amusing humor. But then Agent Desmond mysteriously disappears, Agent Cooper is sent to pick up where he left off, and the film switches focus to Laura. We later learn that Leland was the one who killed Teresa, probably while under the influence of Bob, but other than this, the ring, and some other half-hearted mentions to keep her in our minds, there isn't really a point to the Teresa prologue. I know that Agent Dale Cooper is the protagonist of the Twin Peaks TV series, but he doesn't need to be in the film, as he has absolutely nothing important or constructive to do. And the silly interludes with the man from another place, the sinister old lady, the boy in a tuxedo and pointy mask, and a traumatized Agent Jeffries, David Bowie, recalling his encounter with them, are goofy and unnecessary additions to the film. Once again, from my background research, I am aware that the man from another place and his Black Lodge are from the TV series, but when judging the film on its own, they don't need to be in the film. It's enough for Bob to be a malicious spirit possessing Leland and plotting to murder Laura. Having him answer to a controlling or sanctioning group is fine, but not in the ludicrous, non-threatening way the film presents them in. There is a quote from Quentin Tarantino about Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me after its premiere at Cannes that I just love. After I saw Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me at Cannes, David Lynch had disappeared so far up his own ass that I have no desire to see another David Lynch movie until I hear something different. And you know, I loved him. I loved him. Now, that's unfair. With this film, at worst, Lynch just barely has his nose touching his crack during Fire Walk with Me, as if pensively sniffing it. He then made Wild at Heart, which was good, and then Lost Highway and The Straight Story, which are both outstanding films. But after these heights of quality, Lynch's following films were disasters. His head was pretty far up his own ass with Mulholland Drive, and with Inland Empire, his head was so far up his own ass that his head nearly poked out of his own teeth, like an alien's inner jaw. What I'm saying is that Tarantino should have saved his ire, as Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me isn't bad at all. It has a lot of poorly done elements, but overall I liked it. The film suffers from weak characterization, bad pacing, and some pointless characters and plot points, but it's still a gorgeous-looking, sometimes humorous, and darkly engaging film with an incredible performance from Cheryl Lee, and aside from the silly man from another place and his entourage, surrealism that works. Of all of Lynch's good films, 7 out of 10, Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me is probably the least of them. It's more enjoyable, strictly speaking, than Eraserhead, but Eraserhead is more fascinating for its unrelenting grim weirdness and the cohesive worlds that it creates out of surrealism. And I still place Dune above Fire Walk With Me because Dune is just a cool, exciting sci-fi action movie. And while Blue Velvet actually does some things better than Fire Walk With Me, for instance, it does actually provide a contrast, just not a very good one, between the light and dark sides of life, I still like Fire Walk With Me more because most of its surrealism is effective, it seems more self-aware and fun with its sleaze, and I'm more inclined to find interest in a well-acted but underdeveloped protagonist than a threatening but juvenile antagonist. But in the end, Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me is good, and earns 3.5 stars out of 5. Farewell, David Lynch, until you make a new film, which may be on the cards, as was suggested by Laura Dern and some other friends of Lynch. You will be fondly, and with some bitterness, remembered as both a visionary artist and a worthy foe. Just one bit of advice. Make more noirish erotic thrillers and heartwarming personal dramas. Those are what you're best at. Anyway, thanks for watching. Cheers.